but I know Lauren is not going to be here, but Mel is here for Lauren. Um, and we have some new folks. Ken Mink might not be here or might be here for parts of things, but Brad and Chris and Aaron and Kristen and anyway, we do have a quorum, and I think everyone has been admitted. So if
All right. Do you want to get started then?
I think we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's call the meeting to order of the Lamoille Basin 7 WIC meeting on today, March 26th, 2026. And I have 9:03 on my clock. And so usually we do introductions first. So why don't we just start that while Dean is kind of bringing up the agenda and other items. So I guess I'll just start and then call out people to introduce yourselves. Megan Rodier, Regional Planner with Lamoille County Planning Commission, and I am the WIC chair currently. And today, as you saw in the agenda, we will be electing a vice chair, which is exciting. So I'm just going to call folks out and you can introduce yourself. Karen, I see you next.
Hi, Karen Bates. I'm the basin planner for the Lamoille for Department of Environmental Conservation and the Water Investment Division.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. All right. Dean, you're next on my screen.
Dean Pure staff.
Excellent. And Kristen?
Kristen Leahy, zoning administrator for the town of Hardwick.
Excellent. And Brad, you are next.
Yep, I'm Brad Holden. I'm the town administrator for Underhill, and I'm representing Chittenden County Regional Planning.
Great. Thank you. Fiona.
Good morning. Fiona McMurtry, Greensboro Land Trust, first meeting.
Excellent. Welcome. Great to have you. Nora.
Morning, Nora Brown, Regional Planner at NRPC, so QUISP staff.
Thank you. I'm just going to keep going down here on the screen. I see Dan.
Hey, Dan Kahneman, District Manager for the Winooski Conservation District.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. I see Chris on my screen next.
Hi, Chris Steele, representing the Watershed Stewards of Greensboro.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And Aaron, you're up.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Erin DeVries. I'm the Conservation Director at Vermont River Conservancy.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. And Richard.
Richard Goff. I'm a board member of the Lamoille County Planning Commission, an alternate for Megan.
Excellent. Thank you. Tom, I see you're up next.
I'm Jericho's rep to the Chittenden Regional Clean Water Advisory Committee.
Excellent. And I see Chris Rutler.
Yeah, hi, I'm not on the WIC, but I'm with DEC, and I just like to sit in and support all the work you're doing. Thanks for all that you're doing here. Good to see you.
Great. Thanks for joining us today. And let's see, who else do we have? Just scrolling through, seeing if I missed anybody. I think we got everybody. Did I miss anybody, Dean?
For a second, I thought I saw Mel. Did she log in and then log out, or did I just imagine? I might have imagined that because Mel, I had understood would be here for Lauren, but I guess she's not here at the moment. So, for the purposes of the quorum, since Mel and Dan are both alternates for Lauren, Dan is counting for the quorum.
Yeah, and I sent a message, Dean. I may have to pop out here in like a half hour because I get an appliance getting delivered, but I'm here.
I did see that. I did see that. So we'll do our best to keep tabs on those things. Oh, here comes Mel again.
Oh, great.
I didn't imagine it.
let's just let Mel log on and okay. All right. Mel, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm so sorry. My Zoom crashed, but I'm back. I had to restart my computer. Did we do introductions? I apologize.
We're towards the end, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mel Offerdew. I use she, her pronouns, and I am with the Franklin County NRCD, and I'm serving as an alternate for Lauren Weston today.
Excellent. Thank you, Mel. Okay, I think we got everybody now. All right. So Dean, do you want to share the agenda?
I am happy to do that, and hopefully people can see this.
Yep. So next is just our meeting protocols. So if you want to just, yep, thank you. Scroll down to that. Okay. So we all know the Zoom norm protocols at this point, but we'll just kind of abbreviate them, read them out. Of course, as possible, WIC members should have their Zoom name, title of their organization, whether they're voting or alternate member. And WIC members are expected to have their cameras on, when all possible, of course. WIC members are expected to stay focused, no multitasking if you can avoid it. WIC members will use the raise hand function, when you want to be called upon and speak. And all members will stay muted unless called upon to avoid background noise. Any comments made in the chat will be read out loud. All right. So next up is, do we have any conflict of interest today that anybody wants to raise before we move forward?
You will be recusing yourself during your application?
Yes, of course. Yes, I will recuse myself during LCPC's application.
And I guess for clarification regarding the other application, Ken Mink is not here. He is from the town of Georgia. Georgia is the applicant in the second application under review. And so he would need to recuse himself, but I had understood that he may have a work conflict and arriving late or leaving early or both or something like that.
Okay. Well, we'll just be on the lookout for Ken then. Okay, any other conflicts of interest? Those are probably the two primary ones, right? Oh, okay. Just checking to make sure there's no hands. I don't see any others. Okay, so I think we can move on to the next item. All right. So after conflict of interest, we have review adjustments to the approved agenda. Are there any adjustments to the agenda that folks have at this time? Looking to see. Nope, I don't see any hands raised. So I think we're good there. Let's do the approval of the meeting minute. Okay, so these were our January 22nd, 2026 meeting minutes that were included with our WIC packet today. Were there any suggested edits or changes to the meeting minutes? Don't see any hands, just checking. No? Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the January 22nd, 2026 meeting minutes?
So moved. This is Erin.
I'll second that, Brad.
All right, so we had a motion by Erin and we have a second by Brad. Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? Any further discussion or? Nope. Okay, so do we want to do a show of hands for approval? Do you prefer that, Dean?
As long as it's clear and I've taken it down, so if people show of hands, that can be fine. Nora should be able to see them and the video will record them.
All right, so all in favor, show your hands if you're in favor of approving the meeting minutes. Please put your hands up so Nora can record it.
I don't believe I was there, so I will just not vote.
Okay, so Mel is abstaining. We have, yep, one abstention. Okay, did you get all the hands, Nora?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right. So, all right, minutes are approved. So this is our public comments. Any public comment, you know, in an unrelated to the application, since we'll be going over those, but any other public comments that folks want to raise at this point in time?
Sorry, did we motion to approve the agenda or did I miss that?
There was no motion made.
Oh, we can
Okay.
do that as well. Do you want to do that now?
Finish this.
We should have done that first. So yeah, why don't we just have a formal motion to approve the agenda as well for today? Somebody wants to make a motion.
So moved, Brad.
All right. Motion to approve the agenda by Brad Holden. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Was that Mel? Mel seconded? All right. And then we'll just do the show of hands again. All in favor of approving the agenda before we move on?
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Excellent. All right. All right. Thanks. I think we can move on now. So we were at the public comment, portion of our agenda. So yeah, any public comments, you know, unrelated to the application, since we'll go over those momentarily as well. But anything else that folks want to raise, public comment wise? Okay, I'm still not seeing any hands, so I think we're good there. Okay, so yes, seating of new representatives. What do you have for us today on this, Dean?
Well, we have something to do actually, or at least something to talk about. The meeting packets informed you of the fact that we have people joining the Basin Council as representatives. Kristen Leahy, who had introduced herself at the start of the meeting, who works in Hardwick, is the new municipal representative. And Fiona McMurtry is the new Land Conservation Organization representative. People may recall that Aaron went from holding that position to holding the Watershed Organization position, and Fiona has moved in. And so essentially the record will show, the minutes will show that those folks have joined the group as of this meeting. And then if there aren't any questions about that for either of them, although actually I could just stop and let them say anything that they would like to before taking on the second part of this.
I've got nothing to add to the brief bio, I think, that was included. My day job is with High Mowing Organic Seeds, so I'm kind of excited about the synergy that I have there.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us.
So I am the zoning administrator for Hardwick, but I also serve as the floodplain administrator, the resilience and adaptation coordinator, and have worked with a lot of people who are on here actually. So glad to join.
Excellent. Well, welcome. We appreciate the new membership. And Dean, we don't have to vote them in or
No,
anything? It's just
no,
automatic?
we're recognizing them and it's in the minutes. Yes, they have the support of their sectors, which makes them representatives. But since the packets went out, some things have happened, and it has to do with Emily, and I'm not exactly sure if I'm pronouncing her surname correctly, Lugthart of the Conservation District. As people know, Peter Danforth has retired. He is leaving a vacancy. The folks at Lamoille are interested in continuing their involvement. Emily Porter Goff, who's the acting manager, has a conflict the days of these meetings, and they had expressed some interest in having another staff member, Emily, be recognized as an alternate. So Emily was proposed as an alternate and received the support of the other conservation districts serving this, serving the Lamoille Basin. So I wasn't absolutely sure if Emily would be here, but I just wanted the record to also show that Emily will be listed as well as an alternate in connection with that currently vacant position, which would mean there are two backups for the vacant position, both named Emily, but neither one of which happens to be here. Yeah, so that's what I had on that point.
Excellent. Well, hopefully Emily can join us next time.
And just rolling right along, this was included in the agenda as in the same line essentially because of the similarities. And I'm going to just roll on and address this topic. As the meeting packets indicated, for people that didn't know it already, you hold 2-year seats. And every 2 years, the membership of the Basin Council is renewed. Furthermore, when there's a vacancy in a seat, the person filling that vacancy is filling it the remainder of the term. And so we are coming up on the end of the 2-year window. And according to DEC guidance, we have to renew. We have to find out who is interested in remaining. And many of you, if not all of you, have seen a survey, a questionnaire where we were asking people about their interest. So we have been determining people's interest. And then come April, we will be informing DEC of the status and whether or not we have to recruit for essentially for vacancies. And right now we are looking, we're sitting pretty as far as having all of the seats filled. And we're working on having additional alternates because there is no limit on the number of alternates. So if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We're trying to update the website to reflect these changes. The website has been updated to show the 2 new members and will be updated soon to show the new alternate.
Dean, do you have it's Chris Steele here. Sorry.
Yes, I see you.
Sorry. Do you have a candidate for the full seat, which Peter Danforth has resigned from?
Well, the conservation districts are the ones who decide essentially. And when Peter's news broke, there was some discussion amongst them. And at the time, it was decided that they were not filling it. That is something that could change when whoever becomes the permanent manager of the Lamoille Conservation District is identified. So it's been discussed, but there hasn't been an action taken by the conservation districts. And under the rule, it's the sector, the group, that realm of conservation districts that that makes the call on who represents them.
Great, thank you.
If there aren't other questions, then Megan, I'd be happy to keep rolling on the next topic, which also, this is a good meeting for new people because some of these standing agenda items where we don't always have anything to say, this time we do. And is that okay, Megan, to just keep rolling?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we have a standing agenda item in place where I report on requests for budget adjustments. The Basin Council some time ago adopted a policy that allows, I'll call them administrative adjustments to the budget for a project. When it's up to 10%, it can be reviewed and approved by staff alone. When it's between 10 and 20%, it can be reviewed and approved by staff plus the chair and vice chair. Or although if the chair and vice chair are the ones making the request, then we find a replacement member of the council to participate. So it's a minimum of 3. In this particular case, I received a request from the Orleans County Natural Conservation District for a project that had been approved. This is the implementation phase of the Cemetery Brook project in Greensboro. And they had originally received an approval for 37,000 and change, and they requested an increase of just over $3,700 because they had reassessed the project and made the argument to use a different type of plant stock that they felt would have better survivability. So because it was under 10%, it was something that we reviewed internally and I approved. And according to the policy that was adopted that enables this, the first meeting after the staff action, I must report on it. So that's why it's the standing agenda item. We always want it to be to have a spot where I can say this is happening. So that's what's going on now. And we've, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's a good way for board members, WIC members to monitor the progress or the implementation of this particular policy. And should concerns ever develop, you would have information to base any changes on. So I'd be happy to stop talking and answer any questions if there are any. And if there aren't, then maybe it's time to take up the election of the vice chair.
Yeah, I don't see any questions or hands up at this time. So let's move on to the election of vice chair.
And this slide that shows is really just paraphrasing what was in the packet. So I don't think I need to review it, but the voting participants will be those 9 seats. So in this particular case, because Lauren is away, Mel would be voting for, Mel would be voting on this as one of the 9.
Excellent. Dean, did you have anybody in the interim who reached out to express interest in the position?
I have received no inquiries.
Okay.
Although I would say in terms of elaborating on this a little bit further, for anyone who has even the slightest inkling, I would remind everyone that this particular instance is only through July when the regular annual elections will have to take place. So it's not a huge commitment. And as that slide showed, the role of the vice chair is to fill in for the chair when the chair is absent. The chair and vice chair also provide input and help or primarily shape the agenda for these meetings, of which there are not too many more between now and the next election. So I'm encouraging anybody, like I said, who has the slightest inkling to express this, but I have no other role in deciding who gets to be the vice chair.
Okay. So I will just say when I was elected originally as vice chair, it was a floor vote. So I would also encourage if somebody has someone in mind that they think would do a wonderful job, I would also encourage a floor vote at this point in time. Or anybody else who has the slightest interest. It's vice chair positions, like Dean said, you would be filling in for me when I'm not available, and helping provide some input as well to shape agendas. So it's not a huge lift, but very important role, of course.
And it would include presiding over the review of any vote on Megan's application, since she will be the applicant later in this meeting. So you'll get to stretch your legs very soon.
Right.
Aaron, I would nominate you if you have any interest. I see you smiling. It's up to you. Give me a thumbs up or down. We'll pass.
I guess I have some questions because I was thinking like I really would love to help Megan out, and I was going to nominate Lauren if she was on the call today. So I kind of have some interest, but I don't want to be vice chair for I can't be vice chair next year after July. And I also would need to just check my calendars with Megan to make sure that I could attend the meetings, the next several meetings, because I don't want to let the committee down and not be available for that. So I guess it's like a Brad.
I'll just say I don't think Lauren would want to take the vice chair position. I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but she's just very busy.
And also, just on that same point, the districts have gotten together, and Mel will actually be becoming that full representative as of the new term.
Okay.
But Lauren has said it wasn't necessary for Mel to become elevated to the full position as of this meeting. Yeah, I don't think you want to necessarily elect a vice chair in absentia. But she has said she will stay in her role through the end of this year. So maybe that says something.
I will accept Brad's nomination for vice chair. I'd be happy to work with you, Megan.
Awesome. Thank you. That'd be wonderful.
You need a second?
Yeah, we should so Aaron has accepted it. We should make a formal motion, right? Okay, so Kristen is making the motion then?
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a second to nominate Aaron DeVries as vice chair? Brad is
second. Yeah.
seconding the motion. Okay, any discussion? Looking over to see. Nope, I think
It's only till July.
I think we're good. It's only till July. All right, so why don't we just do a show of hands, all in favor of electing Aaron DeVries as vice chair of the BWIC? And we'll just let Nora capture her hands real quick. All right, let us know, Nora, once you have that.
Can I vote for myself or no? I don't vote for myself, right? Yeah, didn't think so.
Yes,
No, that
you can totally vote for yourself.
Yeah, there's no
I,
no prohibition.
I guess you
Okay,
can,
I'll vote for
yeah.
myself.
Even if you're running for president, you can vote for yourself.
That's true. That's true.
True.
Okay.
That's true. So go ahead. All right. So we have all the hands, including Aaron.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Got it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Aaron, for stepping in. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And I guess while we're on this topic, Dean, I'm not sure if you have a tentative date yet for the July. I know we usually do our annual meeting in July, but I'm away July 22nd through the 29th. So I'm giving you the heads up now.
I do the regular date would be, well, I will pull it up in just a second.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't have it off the top of my head. The bigger question tends to be the location than the date. But
Yeah,
thank you for that, and whether or not there's going to need to be a tweak.
Yep.
Because there could very well be, if that's the last week in the fourth Thursday.
Yeah.
We may want to talk about that a little bit later in the meeting when we're talking about it.
All right. Great. So we have a vice chair. Awesome. So now we get to move on to the application review. And we had 2 applications, right?
Yeah, I can very briefly introduce these, and then perhaps we can take your application first, and we'll turn things over to Aaron to run. I forgot to mention this before. I've started to just include on the slides when things are actions items, and this is an action item, as was the election of the vice chair. There was material in the packet that you've seen, total funding request over $61,000, both projects at the preliminary design phase. Total phosphorus reduction represented by the projects combined is just under 40 kilograms per year, both floodplain stream restoration projects. And there's a summary table that you can see. Estimated total implementation costs, pretty solid estimate for the project that Megan will be describing, $950,000 plus some. I think that's all I was going to need to say. So you should have the ability to share. Megan, I just want to make sure.
I can.
And if we need to have me back up.
I have to send a request to you.
Yep. Okay. It's been honored.
Okay, so now I can. Hold on, I have a lot of different. One sec. I gotta make sure I have the right thing up. I have a couple different things up here, so I just bring that up. That should work. One sec. Okay, now it should work. Yes, there we go. All right. Can everybody see the screen now with the presentation?
I can see it.
Okay, you can see it. All right, great. Super. I'm just gonna move this around so I can see this presentation. Excellent. All right, so yes, so the Lamoille County Planning Commission put in an application for the North Wolcott Road Floodplain Restoration Project. It's technically listed as Heath Road in the watershed database, just because that was more like, a location marker, so it got entered that way. But it is technically along North Wolcott Road, just for clarification. And so we are applying for the preliminary design phase, as Dean mentioned, of this floodplain restoration project. And I'm just going to scroll through here and just move this over a bit so I can see. So here's the project area and extent. So on the northern section, you have, the project is closer to address 2082 and it extends all the way down to the southern portion, closer to Heath Road. Again, it extends along North Wolcott Road, along the Wild Branch, and it does cross two property owners who are very supportive of the project, both Amy Haters and Roy Schoolcraft, and Patty Schoolcraft, his wife. They're very supportive of the project. I actually just met with them recently again, um, and they continue to support and be excited about the prospects of this project. So that gives you a general sense of the area. This particular stretch of the Wild Branch has seen a lot of activity and movement over the years. It's in the northern section. It has seen the channel migrate since 1995, roughly 310 feet. So since 1995. So it's seen a lot of movements already in this location. And then closer to the southern end of the project area, we have recorded that the channel has moved around 260 feet since 1995. So it just gives you a sense of there's a lot of movement that's already taken place. They call it the Wild Branch for a reason. It's very flashy and very wild during spring flooding events. It's an area where the town has experienced repetitive damage, and really when the town prioritizes this location, it's one of their top priorities, really, and we've been trying to secure some funding to move it forward. It's in the hazard mitigation plan for the town of Wolcott as a top priority. It was a priority project identified in the 2020 flood mitigation study that SLR conducted. And they did a whole study kind of up along the Wild Branch, along North Wolcott Road, back in 2020. And so, yes, it was definitely a priority identified in that project as well. And just an area that really needs some attention in terms of flood mitigation. So I'm just going to scroll down here. So these maps were included with the application as well. And I have to give credit to our CREP team with the Agency of Agriculture, of course, who produced these maps. So this shows, you see to my left, anyways, there's the Haters property, so Amy Haters property, that's the northern section of the project extent, and you can see that movement happening again over time. So since 1995, the channel has, it's gone from way back in the field to right up against the road, essentially. Now it's definitely a major, river road conflict area, and you can just see how it's moved. And then again, on the Schoolcraft property, that's more of the southern extent of the project, and a lot of movement has happened since 1995, 260 feet. So that just gives you a general sense of, the river's moved a lot in this area. Hopefully it's getting a little closer to kind of finding its equilibrium at this point. But I do imagine it will continue to move at least to some extent with, upcoming floods again. So as I mentioned, there's been a lot of damage in the past in this area. So it really is an area where the town wants to prioritize flood mitigation. They've done some very minor, like up near Amy's house in the northern extent, they've done some very minor temporary, riprap. It's just, they recognize it's a temporary fix. The town is very open to doing something more long-term floodplain restoration, thinking more natural, longer-term approach. And so these pictures are showing the 2018 ice jam, which basically washed out the whole road on North Wolcott Road up near the Haters property. And so the northern section where the river gets really tight, really close to the roadway. And it took out the utility pole, it took out the road. I mean, it was a major project for them to come back from, and, cost a lot of money to fix the road. So, and again, there's been a couple of major floods in this area. This is post-July flood. The water obviously was higher than that, but this just gives you a sense. There's a lot of debris, there's a lot of large logs that are coming down during these floods and causing, debris jams and things like that, just kind of exacerbating, the flooding situation. So obviously we want to provide a space for that debris to settle out, with floodplain restoration and increase floodplain storage and access to the floodplain. So that's North Walcott Road, post-July flood. Here's some images post-December 2023 flood. This is showing more of like again, the northern section near 2082 North Walcott Road. And you can see how close the river is to the road. It's right up against it. So this is a scenario where, the Wild Branch it's undermining the road at this point, really. And that's why the town had to do at least some temporary riprap, Then we have the southern section. So, it's a little hard to see with these photos, but I'll show you the concept design momentarily, but where there's this really sharp bend in the Wild Branch on the southern extent of the project, they would be proposing a more naturalized, engineered logjam stabilization approach because, well, it may be hard to see in this photo, the bank of the river is actually starting to undermine that slope there that holds the road up. So we have two kind of issues of the Wild Branch starting to undermine, the bank. There's essentially the structure of the road. So just another couple photos. Guess you can see a little better here where the river is kind of slowly starting to kind of eat away at that bank there. And then this, yeah. So you've got the southern part, you see the bank, and then this other photo, you can see the house. That's actually up near Amy Hayter's property, so the northern section. Okay, so here's the 10% concept design. And I know it might be a little blurry, but I'll just give you an overview. This was included in the application packet too, if you want to check it out. But SLR, so as part of that 2020 flood mitigation study, SLR put together an initial 10% concept design for this project. And then LCPC, over the past year, we have put a lot of resources into, trying to go after some bigger federal grants for this project. But unfortunately, things were just so competitive. We were told, hey, this is a great project, but there were other priorities like buyouts, things like that. So we have in the past tried to apply for, we applied for hazard mitigation planning grant, and we applied for community development block grant. But again, there were other state priorities, but they did say this was a good project and encouraged us to apply for other funding opportunities. And then LCPC also put in, I might have that on another slide, but we also put in some of our own money too, because to help SLR kind of bring this 10% concept to a more refined state. We did that for the HMGP application and for the community development block grant application because we believe in this project, so much to the point that we put a couple thousand of our own money in to pay for some of SLR's time to just refine this. But so you can see, there's floodplain restoration that's being proposed here, both in the northern section as well as the southern section of the project. There's that engineered log jam. It's kind of see it in red along the southern section. And then, that would be the stabilized bank there where the slope's starting to, the Wild Branch is starting to undermine, the slope. And then we have some, there's some proposed plantings. There's an old flood chute as well, which would be excavated and restored. We did a similar concept and project just north, so just upstream at the North Walcott Recreation Fields, where they restored this old flood chute to provide overflow, for those floods, a place for the floodwaters to additionally go and overflow instead of, flooding the road. So yeah, there's planting components, there's floodplain restoration, restoring flood storage and floodplain access. There's an small engineered log jam component to the south, and just some minor stabilization efforts towards the north, as well as plantings. So, and I will just note there's a couple things on this concept design that have happened already. So, this is 10%. The big picture ballpark estimate, honestly, I think that's high. So, in terms of implementation, I really think this project could be done for less, and that's based on personal experience too, and seeing what the contractors are bidding on projects now, in terms of the amount. So I think this project could be done for less, and I just want to caveat and say the utility pole that's called out there, that actually has already been relocated by Hardwick Electric Department. So that's a couple $1,000s there that's already happened. That would be reduce the overall implementation estimate. And then also I've been in touch with Amanda Garland from Vermont River Conservancy. I know that she plans to do some level of planting on these properties in the spring. And so we've been in touch, and I definitely will go out there, want to meet with Amanda, and have shared this again because it shows like the staging areas and the areas where we want to make sure there's still a clear pathway for future floodplain restoration to happen. And so there's some components that already have happened or will happen soon that would end up reducing the overall cost. So I just want to point that out. Okay, I only have a few more slides and then I'll open it up for questions. So our funding request today that we're asking for preliminary design is 31,627 and 38 cents. So that's what we're asking for. That's what our application was put in for. Breakdown of the budget, 25,000 for preliminary design. The reason why this is a little bit less is because of all the legwork that has already happened on this project, and SLR has already developed a 10% design plan. They've already done some flood modeling in the area, so that's why that's a little lower. 2,500 for the archaeological resource assessment, and then a little over 4,000 for LCPC staff time, grant management, project coordination. And I already mentioned that other piece. So benefits. So this project actually has a really good P reduction benefit. And we ran it through the newer version of the FFI tool. And we were surprised, actually. We're like, wow, this actually really has good phosphorus reduction benefits. So we were really excited about that. So using the FFI tool, it showed 34.8 kilograms per year. And then also spit out for year one the same. And yeah, so there's a lot of other great benefits in addition to the phosphorus reduction. This project would restore the riparian function and habitat over 7.8 acres of floodplain. So pretty substantial. And then of course it would increase floodplain access. So in a lot of cases, it'd be going from low floodplain access to high. Flood resiliency is of course a huge piece here, protecting, the road, the public infrastructure. There's a business, just across the street from the northern extent of the project too. Obviously, just indirectly, it would help protect nearby homeowners and businesses, reduce future damage in terms of flooding and ice jams. And also, it's a really important connector road too. So, North Walcott Road connects both Route 15 and Route 14. So it's a major connector route. And a lot of, vehicles do travel up and down that route frequently. So some other project benefits that came from the initial flood modeling. Again, this is 10% design, so it's, but this is what SLR provided initially. It would decrease channel velocity by up to 2.7 feet per second, reducing erosion. And then it would also reduce surface water elevation by up to 0.6 feet. The proposed timeline, this was just, included, in the application packet, of course. This is just preliminary design, and since we already have 10% plans, I think we could, certainly get through this in a year. And we already have all the project partners on board and have had past site visits and meetings. And this is my last slide. I just listed the project partners and folks, stakeholders that we have previously met with, both site visits, meetings about this project. So, and I will note that these properties do have river corridor easements on them, so which is why we've been working very closely with folks like Aaron from Vermont River Conservancy. And like I said, I just met with the landowners very recently, and we've had Vermont DEC Rivers Program folks out there, like Stacey Pomeroy, Rebecca Pfeiffer's been out to the site before, our former floodplain area manager. And we've had the CREP team out there with us as well, because there's some former CREP buffers on the property. And the town is, of course, very supportive. So I think I'm going to stop sharing. That's what I had for you all today. Sorry it took so long. Mel, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. This looks like a great project. I'm just curious if you know, like, where is the road located? Is it on the very edge of the river corridor? And then to go along with that, I know there's many, many reasons, like social, cultural, economic, that buyouts don't happen. But I'm just wondering if like relocation was considered of the road and also the homes or buildings, just because it's been such a consistent issue with the flooding. So I'm just curious as to what you know about that.
Yeah, so the property owner to the north was approached, when there was buyout funding available. But she wants to stay. It's her home. She loves it there. And as you may know, when people take a buyout, it's not really enough money to turn around and actually buy a property with today's market. So I'm sure that was also a factor. So they're, yeah, the homeowners don't plan to do a buyout. And then actually, let's see, if I screen share, I think the river corridor easement layer was on that. Let me just bring it back up. Was on the concept design that was shared. Let me just scroll back to that. Thought it was on there. Let's see. Maybe it's not on this one.
Megan, if I may, and I don't think it's on your map here, but Mel, the river corridor is really tight in this location. So to the along the edge, the forest edge there, it's very steep forest. And then you do have the road, but there's no place for the road to go because the valley goes straight up more or less in this, well, it's a very narrow valley. So the river is pushing right up against its corridor because of geology, because of the road, of course, but it doesn't have a lot of wiggle room. That's why it's been shifting over, the last 30 plus years to its extent.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, our old map did have the river corridor easements on it. I guess this one doesn't. But yeah, I mean, Vermont River Conservancy, as Aaron was saying, they're maintaining that 50-foot buffer there, basically, up against the Wild Branch on these properties as part of the easement. Are there other questions about the project?
I have one, if I could, Chris.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the first project, 10% project design. The overall project may cost less than you forecast, as you said, but still significant. Do you have a line of sight to where the subsequent phases, the funding for the subsequent phases are going to come from?
Yeah, so like I said, we did try to secure, two major federal grants, but I think this round was just a very competitive round. Um, I mean, LCPC frequently cobbles together multiple grants to make these projects happen, so this nothing new to us. Future hazard mitigation planning grant rounds may be more focused on these types of projects, so that's one potential source. Or Lake Champlain Basin program. We anticipate absolutely securing supplemental funding for the implementation phase. And we're just asking for preliminary design money at this point in time. But we know that there'll be other funding as part of that mix as we move forward. Yes,
Great,
Dean.
thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up, this is a project that has, as Megan said, good phosphorus reduction benefits. It is, even if we just take it at face value, this estimate of $950,000, it's certainly a fundable project as far as the QUISP is concerned. So perhaps compared to some other projects that don't have the good cost effectiveness ratio, this one does. So this is not a project that if the design work now comes in at $28,000 and the final design comes in at something comparable, that would leave $980,000 for implementation, and it would still be below the $30,000 per kilogram uh, policy threshold that the QUISP has. So I just wanted to reinforce that it does not have bad cost effectiveness, and the QUISP would not be being anxious about funding potentially all or most of it.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. And I did just also want to note, and then I'll get to Aaron in a moment, that when we were developing the hazard mitigation planning grant for this project, it had a really good benefit cost analysis ratio. It was like 6 or something. I mean, that's really good. Because usually you just have to have over 1 for a ratio. And so this had a very high benefit cost analysis ratio just from like a cost standpoint, cost efficiency. And Aaron, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a question, Megan. So preliminary design gets this project to 30%.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I just wanted to provide a little further context. You mentioned just upstream is the North Wolcott, what we know as like the North Wolcott Rec Field project, where SLR and the RPC did a phenomenal job. Floodplain restoration project that I don't believe was brought through the QUISP, but correct me if I'm wrong, Megan. And then downstream of there, you're also working on, and is it Bridge Road? I always forget the name of that road that crosses over the Wild Branch. But that's a project.
Gulf Road.
Gulf Road. Thank you. Thank you. So downstream of here, and again, I don't know where that project stands at the time, but I don't know. Distance wise, it's downstream. I don't know, mileage wise, but this stretch, I mean, the Wild Branch is, like you said, aptly named. So just providing a little bit of context, like there's a lot of important projects happening or have happened along the Wild Branch that, if you measure out all the phosphorus reduction, I bet you it'd be over 100 grams per year. But that's just my rough estimate.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Right.
Is now where I take over and ask for a motion to approve this project?
I make a motion to approve this project.
Okay, Mel makes the motion. Second. Anyone?
I'll second.
Oh.
Chris, thank you. All right, any further discussion, questions for Megan? No, let me look for hands. I do not see any hands. Dean, do you see any hands? No.
Well, Chris's hand is up.
Do you have a question, Chris?
No, sorry, I thought you were asking for us to move to approve, so I'm fine. Yeah.
Well, I will, I think, in a moment, if no one has any further questions for discussion. Seeing none, let's take a vote on the North Walcott Floodplain Restoration Project. All those in favor, raise your hand. I think Nora record that. Thank you, Nora. Any nays? I don't see any nays. Anyone abstaining? Megan, right?
Oh, yes, sorry.
All right.
I abstain as the applicant.
The yays have it. The yeses, the hands up have it. Congratulations, Megan.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right, back to you, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Erin. So we have another project, right, Dean? And do we have our presenters here for that one?
Yes, there is another project, and yes, you have a presenter, and that will be Nora, who's been working with the town.
Excellent. I'll take it away, Nora.
Yeah, so thanks, Megan. I'm presenting this application on behalf of the Town of Georgia Conservation Commission. They sponsored the previously funded project development phase that was funded by this Basin Council and wrapped up in December. So this is for the Silver Lake Road Floodplain Restoration Project, also an application for preliminary design. So for some context, this project development was completed at the end of last year by Watershed Consulting, and now we're applying for preliminary design funding. And the area of concern that sort of started this whole process is this perched culvert, which means it's elevated above its outlet, meaning that aquatic organisms can't pass through, and it's also undersized and creating a large scour pool downstream, as you can see in the picture on the top. Also, the culvert header stones upstream are partially collapsing, and overall upstream there's really low floodplain connectivity and some erosion, as you can see in this picture on the left. So we're looking to do some floodplain restoration work to restore that. So I've just included the FFI results and the project recommendation map that Watershed produced for us. So as you can see, 4.9 kilograms per year total of phosphorus reduction as currently designed or currently proposed. And the overall findings were to do beaver dam analogs along about 600 linear feet of this stream, which is the spillway from Silver Lake Reservoir in Georgia, and to replace the culvert with something that would be more appropriately sized, and do some floodplain and wetland restoration work upstream as well. So there is landowner support from the landowner upstream, so that is kind of determining where these placements are currently proposed. The landowner downstream is not currently interested in participating, and the landowner that is further upstream and on sort of the right side of the stream is kind of an unknown. So part of the process for this preliminary design would be to confirm some of that interest and try to approach the downstream landowners again, potentially, and see if having more details for them might change their support for the project. And here I've just proposed a budget on behalf of Georgia. So we've received a budget estimate from Watershed to do this lump sum preliminary design. And then the rest is for NRPC project management. So the Conservation Commission would be kind of handing that work off to us. And we would anticipate completing this in a year or less. So would be fairly straightforward project. And I think that about covers it. It's a pretty straightforward project, pretty small, but has some good potential for restoration in this area. So if anyone has any questions, I would welcome them. Stop sharing my screen. Erin.
Yes, Nora, actually, I was going to ask you to share back your screen, but
Yeah.
I'm curious. So it sounds like there are a couple of landowners that still you would like to have them get on board to make this like a full, complete project. Is that something that you would do, or Watershed Consulting would go out and have landowner conversations? You meaning
I
like
think
the
it would
RPC?
be I think it would be the RPC in the town, less so the consultant that's selected. And it wouldn't necessarily be Watershed. We would be going out to bid and everything.
Okay.
But yeah, more of an RPC and Town Conservation Commission effort.
Okay, that makes
That
sense.
the downstream landowner who expressed that they weren't interested, we never managed to actually have a conversation with them. They just responded to the letter that we sent. So we were hoping that having a little bit more information for them might allow for kind of a more in-depth conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, Nora, could you go to that last slide, the budget? I just couldn't quite see it. Maybe if you
Yeah.
Oh golly, of course I don't have my glasses on. Okay, thank you. It was 5 kilograms per
Yeah.
year. Is that what it was? Okay.
Currently designed. And I think part of this preliminary design might be to try to find some additional funding sources, particularly for the culvert replacement. That's been something I've been talking with our transportation planner about a little bit. So hopefully that would come into play.
Okay, great.
But it's preliminary stage, so.
Sure. Thanks, Nora.
Mel?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could hear from the QUIS about their thoughts on the cost effectiveness of this project.
Thank you, Mel. I was unmuting myself just as you raised your hand. So thank you. I was going to offer comments comparable to the ones I did for the other application. This is a project where the QUIS is going to be looking for additional outside funding. The cost benefit ratio is depending on whether or not you use the low or the high end of the projection, from between $48,000 and $61,000. So if we and so yes, we will be looking for additional funding. It's not a project that we would want the town to harbor any thought that it is a project that the QUISP would fund entirely. And this is something that QUISP around the basin or around the Lake Champlain Basin are seeing whenever the project involves a culvert replacement. If we start from $30,000 per kilogram and roughly, well, 4.9 kilograms, that would give us a total of $147,000 to play with. If we get, if we use 30,000 of that now, and let's just for the sake of simplicity, say another 30,000 as far as final design, that's going to leave 87,000 for implementation to keep the project at $30,000 per kilogram. And so the rest of the money, it's either going to be about 90,000 or it's going to be another 125,000 on top of that would have to come from someplace else. Does that help fill in the picture, Mel?
Yes, thank you.
And one other thing I forgot to mention as well is that this, for folks who aren't familiar with this area, this is town public access trail. There's like a town forest back here upstream of the area we're looking at. So there's definitely a recreation element to this and an opportunity for public education. And there's some additional stream restoration work that's been done on further upstream of this site that would kind of mesh nicely with further work downstream. Any other questions? No, again.
Sorry to ask so many questions. Just looking at this map, it looks like there's I don't know, a few areas where the floodplain and wetland restoration areas get pretty close or like overlap to the road. Is that
Yeah.
something you could speak on a little bit?
I can speak to it in the sense that this is a really preliminary map, but that's definitely been a concern identified by the Conservation Commission. So I think any further design would make sure to not take out this road, but also this isn't it's not a road anymore. This kind of upstream of where it says Beaver Dam analogs is it's a hiking trail, so it's not currently used by vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Nora. I'm just going to follow up on Dean's question, ask a similar question to that which I asked Mal. If there's the QUISP is funding has potentially the ability to fund part of the implementation. Does the town of Georgia have a view as to where the rest of the money is going to come from?
Not at this moment, no specific sources, but hopefully VTrans funding would be part of this since it's a public right of way under the culvert.
Okay, thanks.
Erin?
Nora, I wonder if the town conservation commission and the RPC have considered applying for WUV funding, so Watershed United Vermont. They have those very long acronyms, but there may be opportunities to apply to receive some funding for this project as well. Just putting that out there in case you didn't know.
Yeah, we definitely take a look at that.
All right. Any other questions for Nora?
I have a question for Dean.
Okay.
Largely because I'm relatively new to this body. As you mentioned earlier, Dean, that this proposal doesn't meet QUISP's thresholds for phosphorus in terms of cost benefit. What's the history of? I mean, what's the history here with the council on voting on projects of that sort? Is that does that mean that a project doesn't go through, or does it mean that we have some flexibility? It's just I just want to think about how I vote on this, and that knowledge would be helpful that I just don't have.
Sure. I'll try to address it. First, we haven't been doing this for very long, so things are still relatively, well, they're still relatively new. There is a policy that the QUISP has that guides QUISP decision making with projects. It is not a It's not a policy of the Basin Council. It's a policy of the QUISP. And what does that mean? What that means is that as a project like this progresses, if the BWIC was to recommend approval for it, the QUISP would have to decide what it's going to do. At this phase, it isn't a large amount of money, but we do need to start looking down the road at what the eventual implementation costs would be and what the cost effectiveness would be. And the way that we are starting to look down the road is by doing what I'm doing, and which is to say, hey, this overall has not great cost effectiveness, and the way to make the project more viable is to put everybody on notice that funds would come from outside. So in terms of like, what is this meant for other projects? I guess I would say most recently, by a one vote margin, there was an application that was submitted that didn't that was I'll say kind of like this one, and it was a larger project, but like this one in that the eventual cost effectiveness didn't meet the threshold, and the project did not get a WIC endorsement. The applicant went elsewhere for funding and did get that funding, but at least in that one instance, the WIC did not vote to advance the project. Does that help?
Thanks. A little bit, yeah. In other words, it's complicated. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it is complicated, and yet
Yeah.
it's not. And I know I see Chris's hand is up. Um, the QUISP is trying to use its funding in a prudent manner. We want to get good bang for the buck. And one way that we're doing that is by trying to have an overall cost effectiveness um, that is going to work within the amount of funding that we have, because the funding that we have is what drives our phosphorus targets. But the choice for the Basin Council is, I think, relatively simple in that does it think that um, this specific request for $29,449 at this stage of the game is a prudent, responsible thing to do, recognizing that the costs could be pretty high. And as Nora said, they're high enough for the town to be already thinking about where could some of the other money come from. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks. Yeah.
Am I next, Megan?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I really like your question, Chris. I think this is a really exciting time for your WIC and QUISP because looking at the numbers in your basin, you do have quite a bit of phosphorus, either, in your pipeline at various stages in development. And I think you're one of the very first basins that really has a very robust queue of projects. And so what that means is that you're in a dynamic where you need to be thinking a little bit more about your scarce public project dollars and how to spend them. So it's about prioritization. So that's like the big picture. I think you did ask a specific question that I wanted to answer, which is you're asking about the role of the BWIC as it relates to the cost efficiency threshold. And I would say you can vote to approve a project that's more cost inefficient than what the QUISP has. Now, I say that, and I know Dean is probably going to wince. I'm not advising that you do that. I'm just saying that you can vote and come to your own conclusions. I think having a cost efficient, that being said, I think it's really important to pay attention to that cost efficiency threshold because it does represent a real number that over the long term is something that the QUISP needs to pay attention to in order to meet their target. But it's an average, right? So any given project that you approve that's below that number gives you a little bit more breathing room. Any project that you approve that's more inefficient kind of ties your hands a little bit in achieving the target. So I would say there's a really delicate balancing act here as you're looking at that cost efficiency threshold. And yeah, I think it's good to keep in dialogue with Dean and about that. To the extent that this is a priority project for you based on other co-benefits, or that you think there may be some co-funding that could come along, or because you've achieved cost efficiency through other projects, you may say, well, we're willing to pay a little bit more on this project because it's important. But that's sort of the weighting you have to do. And you might not know everything in your pipeline. So it's also a moment in time analysis, like what's in front of you now versus what's coming down the road. You may not know what's coming down the road. There may be better projects down the road. So it's a little complicated. I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Chris. Helpful for me anyway.
Great. And I guess I'll just add to that as well and say, I know, so say it's borderline in terms of P reduction. One thing to think about too is when a project is funded for preliminary design and you actually have a 30% design plan in hand, it's a lot easier to secure those larger funding sources versus, starting from scratch. So I just want to throw that out there too. It's a lot easier to secure the next pot of money when you actually, have a 30% design and get funding for at least that initial phase. So there's going to be a lot of projects that come in front of us that are going to have a mix of funding sources, but it is really helpful to give folks a leg up in, at least having funding for that first preliminary design phase. So I just wanted to add that.
I just wanted to mention also in the number I used for building the budget was sort of a higher end estimate for the design itself, because that tends to be the more efficient way to go about it when applying to the quiz rather than having to come back for additional funds. So this phase probably wouldn't use the entire $29,000, but I don't really have a way to estimate that at the application stage without having solicited bids. So.
All right, I see. Mel, did you have another question?
Yes, it's not about the project. It's more about I would love to talk with folks about funding culvert replacements and maybe how QUISP funds can be used to assist with that, if not carry that. Just because in my experience, the district, we aren't even pursuing culvert replacements because it's just not cost effective and we're not sure how to fund them. So I'd be very interested in talking with folks about ways that they've successfully funded culvert replacements or plan to successfully fund culvert replacements.
Great. Thanks. That definitely is a challenge that we're seeing across the board. Chris, did you have another follow-up question?
Yeah, sorry. I was following up on Chris as I was reflecting on what he was saying in this note with this important aspect of prioritization, which is, of course, extremely hard to do if you don't know the pipeline of projects that's coming down that you're going to have to review and consider later in the year. And again, probably for Dean, do you have any sense of what that pipeline is, or it's really something that we have to address on a meeting by meeting basis?
I don't have a sense of the projects that haven't been applied for yet. We do have a sense of the projects that have applied for some amount of design funding that we hope will get to the implementation phase so that we can start to claim credits. Chris is right that the theoretical phosphorus reduction that's represented by projects that the QUISP and the BWIC and the Lamoille Basin have already gotten behind, it's substantial. they just haven't reached the implementation phase. So what I'm picking up on what Chris Wattler said, is that we have to start getting some projects in the ground so that we can actually have some phosphorus numbers that are real and not just speculative, and that will improve my comfort level. But no, we don't, other than things that come in for design that we hope will advance to implementation, because we don't want to invest in design and not get the credit for it. It's really the partner organizations that are, constantly working through their their leads, their prospects. When I started this job, I had a naive thought that we could look at this much like a capital planning process, and we can't. It's just there's too much exploration of ideas, and things look like they're possible and then they don't. And I can understand why the partner organizations wouldn't want to just hold open their, 10 or 15 or 20 possibilities, because that's all they are until they get to the point where they can reduce it to an application and we react to the application.
All right. Just looking to see if there's any other hands up here. I don't see any. So are we at a point where we would like to take a motion and a vote on this project?
Can I just add one other thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
That I think the town would welcome, and this BWIC is also able to fund part of the proposed funding amount. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that that's on the table, and that would be welcomed by the town as well, if that was deemed appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Nora. Okay, so do we have, is anybody willing to make a motion at this point to approve this project for QUIS funding?
I just wanted to say that I was planning on recusing myself since I was on the phone with our attorney for half an hour. Is there still enough to have a quorum if I do that?
Dean is counting.
Yes, there are five. They would have to all vote together. There can't be any, five votes are required for an action to occur. And we have Mel, Aaron, Megan, Fiona, and Chris. And Kristen.
I mean,
Oh.
oh,
Is everybody feeling good about this proposal? Okay.
I have a question before Mel. I think I know what you're. So let's say there's a motion made and there's 4 people that vote on it, and so therefore the project is voted down. Are would Nora and would Nora be able to come back for a second vote? That was a question I had here. I was thinking about Megan's project a few months ago, and I think we were at a similar stage where we maybe didn't have quite a quorum, or I don't remember, but that was the scenario there, and there was really lively discussion, and so I feel like I'm ready to, like I feel I have enough information to vote, but I want to know if Nora could come back in case it's voted down because of the quorum and things like that.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, knowing that, I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the project, if we have one.
I make a motion to approve the project for the full cost of preliminary design.
Okay. Motion made by Mel. Do we have a second to approve the
second.
project for full cost? Erin, second?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Any further discussion? Just gonna look, see if we have the other hands. I'm not seeing any. Okay, so with no further discussion, why don't we do a show of hands of folks who can vote in favor. If you're in favor of the project for full funding for preliminary design phase, please put your hands up now. All right, and then Dean, let us know when you have all the hands recorded.
Yes, we can see everybody and they can see the hands and there are.
I think you need to do a roll call.
We're at that 5 p.m.
Do you
Okay.
want me to call the people out? Or would you like to do that? Can you see everyone?
I think since I'm recusing myself, I think that's the proper thing to do.
Okay, so put our hands back up then.
Well, is it going to be a roll call? So Brad is offering that he thinks it would be good to have a roll call. So I would need to call the roll for people to indicate by voice.
Yep.
Is that what you're meaning, Brad?
That's what I'm meaning, the voting. And I think, Dan, you can vote on this, correct? You're the alternate.
Well,
No.
So Mel is the alternate for Lauren. And so too is Dan.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So, yeah, just a roll call across the grid.
Yes. Okay, I'm just going to go Hollywood Squares here. Fiona?
Yes.
Yes, yay. Megan?
Yes.
Okay. Chris Steele? You're muted.
Sorry, no.
Nay. Okay, there was a nay. Aaron?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Mel?
Yes.
Okay, so we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, so that motion passes. And do you want to call for we know who voted against, and we are going to also note that Brad has recused himself, right?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yes, I recused. Brad Holden recused.
So I think that matter is ended.
Yep. All right. Well, congratulations. Thank you, Nora, for presenting.
Can I jump in with a quick word here? Because of the dynamic where you have that we just talked about cost efficiency and maybe having more projects than money, I'd love to continue to attend the meeting and just keep this as an open conversation and be available to talk about it. Because I think there is an evolving culture and discussion and evolution needed in this space. Feeling our way through it, and it's as much new for you as it is for me. So just wanted to acknowledge that and say I'm interested in supporting Dean as well as your BWIC as we work through this, working together. So wanted to let you know I don't want you to be on your own as we work through these dynamics. And thanks again. This is exciting to see this process.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate your support. All right. So what is next? I think we can move on now, Dean, to our next agenda item. Yes, tactical basin planning.
Yes, indeed. So we will be turning the floor over to Karen Bates. This is an information item. There was material in the packet that pointed out that the law known as Act 76 gives the Basin Councils a role in the tactical basin planning process. That process includes the adoption of these tactical Basin plans, which get updated roughly every 5 years. And so Karen is here to provide a presentation to folks about that. So, Karen, you should be able to share. I do have your slides if you are having any difficulties on your side doing that.
I should be okay. Fingers crossed. Going to see slideshow. So I did. Do you see the slide show? Are the slides as a slideshow now?
We see everything. We see the current slide and 3 slides to the left and your notes.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the screen that you wanted to share.
Right. I see a great slide. So how do I change this? Let's see.
Karen, it says up at the top, present in Teams. Maybe that'll take you to slideshow.
Will that work even if it's if this is Zoom?
Yes, because you're sharing your screen, I believe.
Okay. I'm going to try this again. So you'll see a link that in the chat, and that's for a story map for the Lamoille Basin, and it includes some of the information that.
Karen, yeah. I'm sharing them. So if you want to just tell me when to advance, I will do that.
Okay. All right. Let's just do that then. So, Lamoille Tactical Basin Plan planning process, and this is I'm presenting to the BWICS because you are an asset to our planning process, to the plan and plan implementation especially. So this gives you a sense of perspective of the entire planning process that we undertake to ensure that our surface waters meet the Vermont water quality standards through restoration or protection actions. Next slide. So I'll go through the planning process and also talk to you about what we expect in the future for completing the plan and the aspects or the issues that we're focused on. So in our efforts to ensure that all our surface waters have provide recreational opportunities, aquatic biota, habitat, drinking water, so on, we developed these tactical basin plans for each of the major river basins for the most part, and some other areas that are a conglomerate of smaller trips. There are 15 basins, so we have 15 plans, and they're done every 5 years. Next. Collaboration is very important. We need additional eyes on the ground and also understanding of how best to implement some of the strategies. So we work very closely with, obviously, the clean water service providers, the natural resource conservation districts. So in this area, that's Caledonia, Franklin, Lamoille, Orleans County, the regional planning commissions, which include Northwest, Lamoille, and the Northeastern Vermont Development Association. In addition, we also work with groups like Cold Hollow to Canada, Native Fish Coalition, and I forgot to add that because we're doing more and more work with the Vermont Land Trust and the Vermont River Conservancy as well. So we see those as partners, maybe not so much in the planning process, but definitely in implementation. Next slide. Here's the Lamoille River Basin. If you haven't looked at the basin map in a while, so we're all the way up in Wheelock and Greensboro, and then the Lamoille River then, of course, makes its way down to to the Lake Champlain. It includes towns in Franklin County, Champlain, or Chittenden County, as well as Lamoille County for the most part. Next. This is just showing you specifically where the Chittenden County is. And there is a link down below that you can use to get to also the web page itself and for the plan. But the link to the story map provides you most of the information that you need. But this would allow you to have up-to-date information on our planning process and what's going on. Okay, next slide. Planning process, takes about 1.5 years. The first part is gathering information internally and externally, having conversations about how best we can implement strategies that to address the surface water degradation through strategies. And then we have a draft plan that will be available for your review probably this next. It was just a beep. Anyway, in this late spring, and then we'll have a public meetings in the fall with hope signature in the fall and late fall 2026. Thanks. Okay, next. So our process with our partners and the importance of outreach, of course, is important. So the process includes first just engagement with our partners to develop that plan. But then at this point in time, we're starting to present information to groups that are interested to learn more. So the BWIC's Clean Water Advisory Committee and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission also was presented to. And then we also are working with regional partners to distribute outreach materials with a survey, which allows then the community to participate in discussions by including information that we can use to develop strategies or to support decision making. Next page. So the first step is in a planning process is to understand where the issues are. This Basin 7 assessment report is in that story map in the very beginning. So I'm just going to pull out a couple of priority areas to let you know what's going on. And these are the maps and the lists of waters that then support the strategies then. These are the focus for a lot of our work. So for lakes, we have areas that need remediation or protection. They include Lake of the Clouds, Half Moon, Arrowhead Lake, and Eden. So most of these are not phosphorus related. Lake of Clouds is acidity, and Arrowhead Lake in Eden are aquatic invasive species. So those are addressed through strategies that would be outside of your area of influence. But Half Moon is definitely impaired by phosphorus. And so there could be strategies that specifically address that lake then that you might help to implement. Next, please. So now we've got the rivers. We've got a lot more of those rivers there. And again, a lot of these are other areas like mercury, dissolved oxygen because of dams. We've got metals because of solid waste issues, and but we've got sediment and siltation, Deer Brook. So those are projects that you could very well support, and nutrients at Stonebrook, which is actually the outfall of the Half Moon Pond. Next, please. Rodman Brook is a landfill again, and then the next two are asbestos from asbestos mines. Now, these are impaired rivers, and there's a problem with that river, and this is the source. But the other focus that we have is Lake Champlain and addressing the loads from this watershed to Lake Champlain because it is impaired for phosphorus. Next, please. All right, so protection. Another part of the plan, of course, is to protect, and we have rivers and lakes that exceed water quality standards. And so we'd like to actually set the goalpost a little higher for these then. And within the water quality standards, we are able to do that. And we basically reclassify to a higher classification. We have proposed that we B1, which is one step above what they are now, they're B2s, could be appropriate classification for Lake Eden, even though it's got issues. There's still, the water quality is good. South Eden, Lake Elmore, Lake Caspian. Next. And then with rivers, this is for, again, aquatic biota. These are all candidates again for reclassification to B1 because of the aquatic biota. And you see the list of streams down below. I won't read them off. And these reclassification efforts are ones that we support. We can benefit from assistance from the community. And when we start to have those or support those processes, then we will reach out and let people know, and so that they can be part of the conversation to support it within their community. Next, please.
Erin has a question.
Oh, Erin, yes.
Thank you. So what do the numbers mean after the name of the river or brook there? Like I'm looking at Lamoille 80.2 and then Wild Branch 0.3.
So that's the river mile. So if you were to measure the miles from the mouth of the river, that's that specific area then that's being addressed or being discussed.
And you're looking at it in terms of aquatic biota. So there's the benthic macroinvertebrates.
Yes.
Outstanding. Okay, thank you.
So the planning process, our tactical basin plan does focus in 3 areas. Because they're the areas that legislation has asked us to direct our efforts. They've provided additional resources, so the plans have to discuss those resources, and it includes then phosphorus to address Lake Champlain phosphorus. This is phosphorus, TMDL, so total maximum daily load. The Lake Champlain needs to have a concentration of phosphorus that is very specific, and we need to reduce loading to the lake to meet that target. Flood resilience, we are in the process of developing a process or policies around how we're going to support flood resilience through river corridor protection statewide. And within that, there'll also be efforts to prioritize areas for protection and for restoration. And the tactical basin planning process is identified as a tool for ensuring that we have enhanced flood plain access. At this point in time, we are trying to identify and show where the work we do already is going to enhance resilience, provide priority areas where this might happen if we were to do restoration in a certain area. Conservation. Well, we have Act 56 now. It is supported by the Vermont Conservation Plan that was completed recently. And the tactical basin planning process is supposed to identify areas that are priorities for conservation. We don't know how to do that yet, but it's something to keep in mind. Next slide. So just to go through a couple of these quickly. If you don't know anything about the Lake Champlain phosphorus TMDL, I would encourage you to read the current plan, which is 2021, and it will provide a much better explanation than what I have on the slide. But basically, in 2016, we knew exactly what phosphorus was coming from where, which of the 5 sectors: agriculture, developed land, roads, wastewater, and natural resources. And we basically then calculated how much each of those sectors would have to be reduced by. The loading from those sectors would have to be reduced by. So that the lower pie chart shows how things will be decreased. So for example, developed lands, it provides 21% of the phosphorus loading to get the lake to meet the target. Then we have to reduce developed land loading to, well, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry, it says 22%, but thanks, Erin, for that. So anyway, there's a reduction that has to happen. Oh, we probably have to just reduce the base load by 22%. So next slide. Progress to date. So we are in developing the basin plan. We do have to provide a report to EPA on our progress. And the end date is 2036. So we're from 2016. So we're, good halfway point. And we've done the best when it comes to agriculture. A lot of that is because there's a lot more money there. We've got the required agricultural practices, so work has to get done. And then in the end, a lot of the practices that we're supporting that will reduce phosphorus loading actually help farmers increase yield. So for example, cover cropping that will reduce the erosion of soil in the fall after big storms, if we can plant a cover crop, rye grass, let's say, that can establish itself before winter onset, then we're going to reduce that erosion and save soil that will enhance yield, but also reduce then the phosphorus loading to Lake Champlain. So it's been a great example of success because it's win-win in a lot of ways. And there's money to actually support then the practices that will reduce loading. The rivers, that's a different sort of approach there. We've basically said to EPA that we are going to do everything we can to support this river moving towards equilibrium, but we can't really measure where, when, or how close a river is to equilibrium with the tools that we have. So this basically just shows the projects that we have supported that may have enhanced floodplain enhanced access to floodplain, or increased access, or I'm trying to think of what I would say about a culvert, but anyway, adding culverts and bridges that basically meet the needs of the river to work towards equilibrium. So, but there's not a lot there, but we know we've already, the rivers are moving towards equilibrium. We just can't measure it. And with this new protection, floodplain protection, that's going to further help that to happen. Stormwater, it's just expensive. You all know that it's hard to accept a project that addresses stormwater because it's an expensive project and people are not necessarily going to want stormwater treatment on their property. So, because it's a hole in the ground, right? So that's been a challenge and something that we have to continue to talk about. Roads, we've got the municipal road general permit that's going to help us at least partway to that goal. And we're hoping with the private road work that we're doing that will help encourage more private road projects to come your way. So that would add to our achievements over the next 5 years. Forest, we've actually, that's basically addressed through implementation of AMPs. And those are the BMPs for forests. So if a forest is in UVA, basically it's protected as forest land for silvicultural purposes, then we're sort of assuming that they meet the AMPs. And with that, then we've calculated that it's above and beyond what would need to happen to reduce loading for the forest sector. I think in the end, what we're going to be doing probably is maybe taking some of the reduction that we need for stormwater and then adding it to the forest sector so we can continue to enhance the forest and practices in it and just obtain more phosphorus reduction there. Okay, next slide.
Erin has her hand up again.
Oh, hi, Erin.
Sorry, I love this stuff.
Yeah, I know. I love your questions.
For the forest sector, so there is no target reduction amount for the forest sector?
There is.
There is.
There is. So, and we do that just so that we can help direct money. But EPA doesn't really care so much about, I mean, in the end, they want to know that we've reduced total loading to that lake segment. So we can change, in the end, we can, not sure how it's done, but we're not going to stop our work in the forest land.
Right. but there's none remaining if they're you've exceeded, you're at 144%, and that's why you can shift things around.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
And again, this was some of it in trying to figure out how much that each sector would be responsible for. It's modeling. There are mistakes in modeling, and so there's room to reassess. Next slide. Flood resilience, we talked about that. And at this point, the projects that you support are those river corridor easements, floodplain restoration, sometimes through buyouts. So those are important projects. They reduce phosphorus, but they're also going to lead us towards flood resilience, which is a target for the planning process. Thanks. Next slide. All right. So want more information? The Basin 7 webpage, there's a link here. I think you got it earlier. Read the story map. That's going to be maybe all the information you need. The webpage itself will give, it's not quite updated, but it will give you information about future meetings or the planning process, where to go for those public meetings in the fall, especially. And then there's also a link to the current Tactical Basin Plan. It was written and signed in 2021 on the webpage and in the story map. And I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Any other questions for Karen on tactical basin planning?
I was curious, just going off of Aaron's question about and the answer about putting some of the phosphorus from forestry into stormwater or vice versa. Mm-hmm. Does the QUISP pay attention to phosphorus goals per sector, or is it more like a total goal?
They have, well, Dean can let me know if I need to be corrected, but they have an overall phosphorus target, and we have given them estimates of what sectors they might expect to be able to, or how much loading from each of those sectors they might be able to target or focus on. I don't know, Dean, you have a better way to say that, but in the end, it's the total phosphorus load or target that they're focused on achieving.
No problems with how you described it, Karen.
Thank you.
Aaron, was that a hand?
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to find the raise the hand there. Just a quick question. Native Fish Coalition, I had never heard of them before. Is that a group where I think Mel or maybe Nora could access that group for aquatic organism passage funds?
There was one guy who had wanted to be involved, and they had been involved a little bit earlier. I haven't seen them recently at any of the meetings, and they definitely are interested in helping to protect brook trout streams. And I'm not sure where they get their money from, but it makes a lot of sense to make sure that for any culvert replacements that if they're in brook trout habitat, that other funding is obtained. U.S. Fish and Wildlife often has often has access to funds for that purpose.
Are you referring to Luke Riccati?
Yes.
Yeah, Luke was a former NRPC employee, and we're in touch with them on some other projects, but I don't know that they themselves are a funding source. But we can help connect people to them if you would like. Mm-hmm. I'm mindful of the time, Megan. I don't know what abbreviated version of the remaining materials you'd like to get. I know that I have to leave as soon as I can, but
okay,
I will just move on to the next slide if I can.
Yep, sure.
We will talk about this in more detail at a future meeting, but I just wanted to update people on the fact that the QUISP has created an online system that those on the Basin Council who get QUISP funds can use to upload their invoices, their deliverables, and things like that. We'll talk about it in more detail. We'll present people. We can do one-on-ones. And also just wanted to update folks that when we are issuing task awards these days, there are a growing number of, I'll call them, they're like conditions. We are, as the QUISP has instituted a policy where for contracts that would be over $10,000 that there be competitive procurement. So that could mean that people are competitively procuring when their organization's policies say they do not have to. But that is something that Chris Rotler has said QUISP can do. But Chris Rotler has also said that we can set things up so that an organization can procure once for multiple phases. If this sounds like too much gobbledygook, we can get into it a little bit more. There are some growing requirements having to do with the calculation of phosphorus reductions, especially for people who are getting funds to do riparian buffer plantings. So anyway, the phosphorus calculation, it's all theoretical in a sense, because of modeling, and it can be complicated in terms of tracking. Anyway, I think I'll just leave it at that, and we can revisit these. And just continuing on topics for the next agenda, there is another funding round coming up, so there'll be more applications to review. There will be a presentation on the forest road project type. Silas Rainville will be talking about that. Those are two things that we know we'll be doing. There's also kind of a administrative detail that needs to happen. The bylaws basically say that the organization would create a nominating committee for the annual meeting unless the Basin Council says, no, this year we don't think we need to do that. So if the Basin Council feels that it's not necessary to create a nominating committee, then we just have to check that box at the next meeting. And if there are other agenda topics people want to suggest, please let me know. And I think that's all that I had.
All right. Great. Thank you, Dean. So, and I know you have to head out. I don't see any immediate hands.
Move to adjourn.
There we go. Motion to adjourn made by Brad. Do we have a second to adjourn?
Sure. I'll go. Chris, go.
All right. I think Chris has the second to adjourn. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy the afternoon. Take care.
Thank you.